So, the Staten Islander News Organization is here today with Wil Meya of the Language Conservancy. Wil Meya is the executive director of the Lakota Language Consortium. He is a national advocate for endangered languages and draws on more than 20 years of experience in higher education, linguistics, and nonprofit management. He's here to speak with us today about the release of the new Lakota dictionary and efforts to preserve indigenous languages. Good morning, Mr. Meya.
Good morning, Heather.
So the first question I have is, what is the importance of language?
Well, language is something we kind of take for granted often, but essentially it is the vessel with which we all express culture, with which we express a worldview. It is the container with which we, have our memories and cherish our connection with our past and our history. And it's ultimately the way that things like culture are expressed, the songs and the prayers, the stories, the histories, and all of that. And without language, it cannot really be expressed. And essentially, when a person speaks their own language, they are, maintaining their connection with their past and with the continuity of the culture that's existed for often tens of thousands of years.
Okay. And how does language connect people with their culture?
Well, language, as I mentioned, is a very intimate, personal thing. It's something that is, starts, so to say, in the family and continues with the community and eventually the nation. And again, it's a shared code, a shared set of meaning, and a shared, often value system. And that is then a world, a universe unto itself. Anyone that speaks another language often can say something like, I often can be a different person when I'm speaking that language. And that's essentially what we're talking about, that communities, especially indigenous communities, have specific languages that they have had in their community for tens of thousands of years. And they're really trying to maintain that connection and that worldview with themselves, their ancestors, and hopefully their children and grandchildren moving forward.
And what else constitutes culture besides language?
Of course, culture can be expressed in art, music, dance, history, prayers, stories, all of those things. The things we, take for granted and or live each day, even science and thoughts, philosophies, all of that is reflected in culture and in language.
Okay. And are all languages under the threat of extinction?
Well, not all languages, but the vast majority of languages are threatened. We believe that in our lifetime, in the next 50 years at least, up to 90% of the world's languages could become extinct or morbid. And so what that means essentially is that all of the thousands of languages, the over 6,000 languages that are spoken in the world, perhaps only the ones that we recognize as being national, large languages with many millions of speakers will be able to continue to survive. But really the thousands of languages that have, less than 500,000 speakers or 100,000 speakers, those are very likely going to pass on and going to become extinct.
Okay. And what does your organization do?
Well, Language Conservancy partners with Indigenous and endangered language communities, governments, school districts, to support the materials and resources that are needed to maintain and sustain these languages. Very often, these minority languages may not have dictionaries, so we will help in the development of a dictionary for them. We can develop a dictionary in as little as 12 months for a language of up to 15,000 words, and put it into an app that can be used by young people to learn the language, to hear the language spoken authentically and accurately from their grandparents and other elders. And so, again, Language Conservancy really supports the building of capacity in these communities to maintain their language. We help train teachers and other linguists to support and the things that are needed to keep that language going.
Okay. How many language dictionaries is your group working on creating at this time or in the future?
So Language Conservancy works with over 50 languages worldwide, primarily in Canada and the United States, Australia, Mexico. We have developed over 15 dictionaries already, and we estimate that we will be assisting communities of, in the near future in the creation of over 100 additional dictionaries.
Okay. And how can people who want to get involved with your project do so?
Well, there are many ways that can be a person could get involved in this type of work. For example, if you were a student and you wanted to assist with the development of dictionaries or in other kinds of language work, we have internships and other kinds of job opportunities available. If a person wanted to learn any of these languages, we have many kinds of events that a person could attend, such as the Language Weekend or Summer Institute. We also, are always looking to partner with other kinds of supporters, such as foundations or individual donors who would like to support this work to, maintain and revitalize the world's endangered languages. We're in the forefront of this type of work, and we're very proud of the many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that we serve. And we, of course, know that young people want to learn these languages, and they often just are needing the means and the resources to learn them, and that's where the Language Conservancy comes in.
Okay, great. So, I guess what kinds of materials are available to help people learn Native American languages?
Well, we hope there's something for everybody. For the youngest learners, there might be things like picture books and cartoon series. We've done the Berenstain Bears and in a video series. Middle age, or rather middle school age students, there's things like textbooks, readers. We have advanced grammar handbooks and dictionaries and apps. We have e-learning platforms that are on par with some of the best e-learning platforms available commercially, and many other kinds of things, such as events and other things that can be done to enhance and support language learning. We also offer summer institutes and language weekends for adults. And as I said, language revitalization is a team effort. It's a community effort. Though we provide, of course, some technical support, it's really a partnership with lots of the different stakeholders involved in the language, such as teachers and administrators, community leaders. Everyone is parents, grandparents, and children. Everybody's needing and plays some role in the revitalization and the reclamation of languages.
Okay. And what are your outreach efforts in regard to spreading the languages among the Native American tribes?
So we work, again, very closely with communities and often school districts and tribal colleges and other kinds of organizations to do things like an event, different kinds of events. One of the events we often do is called a Summer Institute, where we offer 3 weeks of classes in all kinds of things, from phonology and morphology of the language, the linguistics of it, to teaching methods, to even and obviously the learning of the language itself and the different kinds of levels. So, that's one very, very important way to get adults involved. We also support special kinds of schools called immersion schools, where young people are part of a program where they hear and get communicated with in the language all day long. And so that's one of the ways that they can become immersed in their language and begin, hearing it on a daily basis and begin using it, hopefully, as well.
Okay. And are your learning services open to everyone?
Yes, so for in terms of our work, we're able to work with languages all over the world, of course, and we receive inquiries from all over the world in terms of the work we do. We also, the materials that are produced and all of those resources, in terms of how they're being utilized, it's often on a case-by-case basis, and the community will decide, whether or not they would want to share, let's say, a dictionary or an app with outside users who are not, for example, members of the community. But in most cases, we encourage those communities to indeed share the language with others who might want to learn it. That increases overall the utility and interest in the language and helps support the overall efforts.
So, are there specific languages that you know of that are open to everyone?
Yes, so for example, Lakota is something that could be learned by anyone. Apache, um, Ojibwe, Crow. I would say the majority of the languages we work with are open to, letting non, members, so to say, of that community learn the language.
Okay, great. And one of the other editors had an additional question. Are the languages still spoken on reservations? And is there an effort to keep the spoken languages alive?
Yes, of course. So generally, there were over 500 languages spoken at one time in the United States. Currently, there are less than 80 languages actively spoken. Of those 80, really there's only about 15 or 20 that have over 100 speakers, so to say. Most of the speakers um, that are speaking the language are over the age of 70. For the most part, in the United States, the all Native American languages, with a few exceptions, stopped being passed down in the communities between parents and children in the mid 1950s. That is, that the intergenerational language transmission, as we say, stopped happening in around 1954. And so from that moment on, the real number of speakers in any given community started to diminish because every year, people would pass on, but if they were not being replaced by new children being taught to speak that language as a first language, then the real number of speakers continues to decline. So for languages like Lakota, where we've worked for over 25 years, there were at one point when we began working with this community over 20 years ago, there were over 20,000 speakers of the language. Today, we estimate only about 1,500 speakers left, if not fewer. And that is obviously just basically the attrition that happens when language is not being replaced by first language speakers again. So we're in a race against time. We have a very short window of opportunity to teach and help teach a new generation of speakers to learn the language, and hopefully to communicate and speak with that final generation. We hope not the final generation, but the last generation of first language speakers, and try to maintain the continuity of these languages. Many of these indigenous languages are all in the same place. The average speaker is over 70 years old. There are not new speakers in the work, so to say, and we need to figure out ways to get young people to learn it and hopefully then communicate with their elders and maintain that link.
Okay. Um, do you have anything else that you would like to add for our readers, maybe that we didn't exactly cover?
I would say that, Language Conservancy is in a unique position to support communities like this worldwide. We take this responsibility very, seriously and respectfully. We try to do this in the most respectful and supportive way possible. We see our work really as providing a bridge between elders who want to support and maintain their languages and the young people that want to learn those languages. But often been a disconnect from different kinds of policies in the past, like boarding schools and other government policies that have prevented the language from being spoken and continued and passed down from generation to generation. And so we see Language Conservancy really as a bridge between those elders who are speakers and those young people that want to learn the language. So we take that responsibility very seriously.
So is that something that your organization also focuses on, in that you bring young people together with the older speakers to kind of facilitate learning of the language in
Yeah, we
among
try to do that
generations?
wherever possible. We work with a lot of elders in our events and in our institutes, and of course in the development of the materials. Of course, we also try to bring those young people who are interested together to events like summer institutes and language weekends where they have opportunities to interact with those elders.
Okay. And what would you say is like the most important reason why people should want to learn the language that was not passed on to them in the natural, normal way? What would you say is the most important reason for that?
Well, language is ultimately a form of identity. When a person has that knowledge of that language, and express themselves in their heritage language, in their ancestral languages, then they can be truly members of that community. Without that language, they're really, an approximation of that. And we want to make sure that those identities, those histories, those cultures continue to play a role in the world today and moving forward. They increase the richness of our world, the diversity of our world, and ultimately, ideas that come out of those communities could be, supportive and useful for other communities and the rest of the world as well. And we want to make sure that.
I think your speaker just stopped working, like your microphone. This last maybe 20 seconds or so, it's been really low, and then it just went out just now.
Okay, I'll turn it up. Do you still hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay,
So would you be able to just repeat some of the last things you said? Because your voice just went out.
I see. Basically, I said that you know, language is a means of maintaining identity and connection to who you are, and young people are often interested in maintaining that connection. And we want to support those kinds of connections because they make the world a richer, more diverse place. When languages and cultures are allowed to continue to exist in a meaningful way, they can contribute to the world in general by providing ideas, concepts, art, poetry, and many other things. And we want to make sure that those kinds of opportunities for cultural enrichment for the world really continue.
Okay, great. And if somebody wanted to obtain the Lakota dictionary that you were involved in the unveiling of this weekend, how would they get a copy of that?
Well, they can go to, if they have a smartphone, they can download a free copy of the dictionary on either the Google Play Store or the Apple iTunes Store by just typing in Lakota Dictionary, and they'll get the link to it. If they wanted a book copy, which is over 40,000 entries and 1,400 pages, you can order that on the bookstore for Lakota Language Consortium, and that can be accessed at the main website, which is lakhota.org. That's lakota.org, lakhota.org.
Okay, perfect. And you were saying it's in an app on your phone. Is it available as a Kindle or e-reader edition as well?
Well, it's an app that is interactive. So there's an audio component. Every entry has both a male and a female voice to it. And this is something that kind of needs to be done on either, it's a standalone app, really. So you would need to download it on one of those kinds of operating systems like the iOS or Android.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I didn't have any other questions, so it was really very nice meeting with you. I really appreciate your taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you, Heather. I look forward to reading the story.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Have a great day.